Hey, hello there. We are looking at the fifth minor prophet today, the most famous of all the minor prophets. We're looking at Jonah. Yeah, the one who got swallowed by a whale. Now, it's funny that that's what he's most famous for. Even Jesus talks about this in both Matthew and the Gospel of Luke. And it's ironic because Jonah was swallowed by a whale and 3 days later was spit up. A lot of people use that as a reason for why they don't believe the Bible. They say things like, oh, I don't believe the Bible. It's just got made up stories in it, like Jonah getting swallowed by a whale. Is it really that hard to believe that a whale swallowed a person? There are actual examples of this throughout history. One is back in almost 100 years ago, 1927, the Princeton University Journal had an article where a sperm whale upset a whaling boat. It was down off the coast of South America, and it swallowed one of the sailors. Well, after the sailors had regrouped and got together, they got on a ship and they went out and they killed the whale. And when they opened the whale up, that sailor he had swallowed 3 days earlier was still alive in his stomach. So it's possible. These things do happen. Just because something is hard to believe doesn't mean it doesn't happen. So the interesting thing about the story of Jonah is his message is much bigger, much more important for us today than just being swallowed by a whale. It's a huge story. Let's look into it today. Just basics. What is Jonah all about? Jonah was written around 760. That date will be very important in just a minute. Jonah was given the opportunity by God to be the very first missionary. He was calling Jonah to take his message and go to a different country. Jonah said, no, not gonna do it. Now, why would he say no? Because God had called him to go to Nineveh. Nineveh was the capital city of Assyria, and Assyria was a brutal people who punished those that they conquered. They made them suffer. Both Hosea and Amos had said that Assyria was going to conquer Israel. So Jonah was probably thinking, Assyria can't destroy my people if God destroys them first. So he says, I'm not going. As a matter of fact, he went in the opposite direction. If Nineveh was this way, Jonah went that way. Jonah was out of there. He was out of there. And here's what we're going to see something very interesting here. The main point we're going to see is that God will always keep reaching out to you. God is going to pursue you. He's going to pursue Jonah right now. Jonah is on a ship. He's trying to get away from God. Of course, you can't run away from God. He's everywhere. And as he's trying to get away from God, God sends a storm. It is a major storm. This boat is being tossed back and forth. Everyone on board is fasting and praying that their God would somehow stop the storm and rescue them. They find Jonah and say, Jonah, why aren't you praying? Who are you? What's going on here? And look at what Jonah says in chapter 1, verse 9. Jonah said, I am a Hebrew, and I worship the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land. I worship the God who made the sea. This freaked people out. They said, you've got to pray. Maybe your God will save us. Jonah said, this storm is my fault, and the only way for this storm to end is for you to throw me overboard. To be thrown overboard into the sea during a storm, that's certain death. Jonah would rather die than to go to Nineveh and share the message God gave him. The people didn't want to do it, but eventually they did. They prayed first. Lord, forgive us for taking this man's life, but he said this is the only way. So they threw him overboard. Now, miraculously, the storm stops after that. Isn't it interesting how God can create a witness for himself even from a prophet who doesn't want to obey him, doesn't want to share his message. God has proven himself powerful in the eyes of the sailors on that ship because the storm stopped as soon as Jonah was thrown overboard. After Jonah was thrown overboard, he was sinking into the water to certain death, except that God wasn't finished with him yet. God wasn't done with Jonah. He was still pursuing him. So in chapter 1, verse 17, we see that the Lord provided a huge fish to swallow Jonah. And Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. We don't know if it was a whale, it was some kind of a fish, some kind of a sea creature. God prepared it. We don't know if this was a fish that had uh, just been made especially by God for this purpose, to swallow Jonah. We don't know if it was a fish that had been around like normal and it just happened to be in the right place at the right time. What we do know is that God provided the big old fish to swallow Jonah. Once Jonah is swallowed, he repents, he prays. I shouldn't say he repents, he prays, and 3 days later, this fish spits Jonah up. And God tells him, go and take the message I gave you to Nineveh. So Jonah goes, and he does it. It's apparently a short message. In chapter 3, verse 4, here's the message. Jonah began by going a day's journey into the city of Nineveh, and he proclaimed, 40 more days, and Nineveh will be destroyed. In 40 days, Nineveh is going to be overthrown. Not much of a message. If you are living in a city and some stranger comes in and says, hey, in 40 days, my God's going to destroy you, how do you respond? I think most people would ignore it, maybe even mock him. They certainly wouldn't respond positively to it. But look at how the people responded. Oh my goodness. This is one of the greatest responses ever to a message. In verse 5, it says, the Ninevites believed God. A fast was proclaimed, and all of them, from the greatest to the least, put on sackcloth. Sackcloth is a scratchy material that you wear to show everybody that you're fasting and sorry for the wrong that you've done. When Jonah's warning reached the king of Nineveh, he rose from his throne, took off his royal robes, covered himself with sackcloth, sat down in the dust, and he proclaimed that everybody needs to fast. Verse 9, who knows, the king says, God may yet relent and with compassion turn from his fierce anger so that we will not perish. Verse 10, when God saw what they did and how they turned from their evil ways, he relented and did not bring on them the destruction he had threatened. Now, why in the world would they respond so powerfully to a message from a foreigner that if you don't repent, you're going to be destroyed? Because as God usually does, he's at work behind the scenes. He's been at work in Nineveh for a number of years now. There was a plague that hit Nineveh. Lots of people died. After that plague, there was a solar eclipse. The sky went dark, freaked people out. What's God trying to tell us? After the solar eclipse, there was a second plague that happened. And right after this second plague happens, Jonah shows up, having been swallowed by a great fish and then spit out. And he comes with a message, and the people are saying, this must be the representative of the God who's trying to get a message to us. So they listened. Now, that's the greatest response of all time. At Pentecost, Peter preached and 3,000 people came to know Jesus. Amazing, amazing. But when Jonah preached in Nineveh, the entire city repented. From the king all the way down, they all repented. What an incredible story that is. Do you think Jonah might be happy about this? Not in the least. Not in the least. Look at chapter 4, verses 1 through 3. Look at what Jonah says. But to Jonah, the fact that God relented, this seemed very wrong, and he became angry. And he prayed to the Lord, isn't this what I said, Lord, when I was still at home? This is what I tried to forestall by fleeing to Tarshish. I knew that you are a gracious and compassionate God, slow to anger and abounding in love, a God who relents from sending calamity. Now he's just pouting like a little baby. He says in verse 3, "Now, Lord, take away my life, for it's better for me to die than to live." Oh my gosh, what a toddler we've got here. He's a prophet acting like this. What is going on? We're going to see something very important. Jonah looks at the character of God. He's gracious, compassionate, slow to anger, full of mercy, full of love. Great characteristics. Jonah's upset about that. Why is he upset about that? Because while Jonah wants God's graciousness and compassion shown to him, he doesn't want it shown to a group of people that he doesn't like. And that's what makes Jonah such a powerful message in our world today. I live in Alexandria, just outside of Washington, D.C. Things are kind of political here. Oh, yeah. And it is very easy for politics to divide people. Democrats think that Republicans are the enemy. Republicans think that Democrats are the enemy. There are so many ways to get into all of these uh, people groups where we think that the other who disagrees with us, they're the enemy. And God is coming along to Jonah saying, no, these people, for Jonah, it was the Ninevites. For you, it might be another political party or some other group that you or I may not like. But God says these people were made in my image. My son Jesus died for these people, and they need to know that there's a God who loves them enough to save them. And he calls you and me to do that. He calls you and me to do that. It's a powerful message, isn't it? He wants you and I to take the message of Jesus' love and salvation to the world around us, even the people we may not like. Remember, liking and loving are two totally different things. Two totally different things. To like someone just means you have a natural affinity with them. God never commands you to like somebody. That's just a natural thing. Sometimes you hit it off, sometimes you don't. But to love, that's different. To love means you are going to act in a way that is for the benefit of somebody else. And God does command us to love even our enemies. And Jonah gives us an example of how do we do that? We share the goodness of God with them. Now, for those people to hear the message of God, are they more likely going to hear it from someone that is kind to them? Someone that says, hey, I may disagree with you, but I care about you? Or are they going to hear it from someone that says, I don't like you, I can't stand your platform, you're an idiot? When someone acts like that, we shut them off. We don't want to hear from them at all. But when we show care, when we show compassion like God does, even though we may disagree, and they know we might disagree, that kind of compassion, kindness opens the door to hear the message of God's grace to them. It's amazing to me. God doesn't stop pursuing. God will never stop pursuing you. God didn't stop pursuing Nineveh. He sent a plague. He sent a solar eclipse. He sent a second plague. And finally, he sent Jonah because he wanted these people, a city of 120,000 people, he wanted them to know that there is a God and there is judgment, but there's also forgiveness. There's also forgiveness. And God was also pursuing Jonah. God could have, after Jonah took off, God could have said, you know what, let Jonah go. I'll get somebody else to go. But he didn't do that because he wanted Jonah to understand that God's grace isn't just for his people in Israel. It's not just for Christians today. God wants to extend his grace to everybody, including those groups of people that you and I may not like, whoever they may be. That's a powerful message. God will never stop pursuing you. God will never stop reaching out to you because he loves others and he wants you to show love to them as well. That's the message of Jonah. Jonah ends with a stalemate. God is waiting. God has told Jonah what's going to happen. Everything's clear, but we don't see how Jonah responds. How are you going to respond? How am I going to respond? Are we going to show love to others like Jesus did? Or are we going to let the world direct us to showing hate to people we disagree with? I pray that God will raise us up, that we might show love to all those around us, not just our neighbors, just not our friends, not just the people that we agree with, but that we might show love to everybody, even our enemies. That's what Jesus did. That's what God has called us to do. And when we show love like that, God changes everything. God will never stop reaching out to you. Isn't that a wonderful truth? God bless you. Have a fantastic day.